As you continue to study haunting online or through seminars, what you're going to hear a lot of is people saying that haunting is improv, and all haunters have to be taught improv, and the number one rule of improv is yes and. But is that really what we do? And is yes and really the means to get to what we do as haunters? This is Perspectives on improv, yes and haunting. This is Scaring with Sammy. And this would have been a smoother transition if I had music, which I don't. So one of the things that we do as haunters is that we interact with guests and without a script. I mean, sometimes, of course, we might have lines, we might, have lines prepared, but the guests are going to say things and they're going to respond, and they're not scripted. So generally, what we are doing is we are performing without a script. And this is what some people refer to as improvisation. So it makes sense that when teaching scare actors, we look to this other art form called improv, I'll call it with a capital I, improv, which is also based on the idea that there is no script. And of course, yes and is part of one of the first things you learn when you're learning this other art form of improv. But these are two separate art forms with two different goals and results. So I enjoy improv. I've done improv for many years. I've done structured and short form, long form with different types of groups, worked with some amazing people, amazing groups. And I've even taught in the Southeast United States while I was touring to high school down to maybe grade school children. So I'm very familiar with improv. I love the art form, but I still think that it's different from haunting. So what I'd like to do today is I want to go through improv. I want to talk about yes and, the difference between haunting, what haunters should do, and I really want to get into this, so buckle up because this is going to be a little bit longer than what I usually do. Let's look first at yes and improv. Yes and is an abbreviation, it's shorthand for an improv concept called accepting and contributing. Basically, we are accepting the truth of whatever is being offered to us, and then we are contributing. And yes and is a quick, easy shortcut to be able to teach to beginning students so that they can start to learn the rules. So if you have somebody that says, I claim this land for Spain, the other person doesn't go, what are you talking about? We're in a disco. You see how that kind of blocks the scene. Well, it's actually called a block. Blocks the scene, it means that we're not really going anywhere. So you teach the beginners this basic, simple abbreviation, this simple tool, yes and. Whenever you're encountering somebody that's making an offer, you say yes, and then you contribute. I claim this land for Spain. Yes, and we have to defend it. So that's the basics of yes and. Now, the idea of actually saying yes and, like I said, it's an abbreviation. People only use yes and for the very beginning, maybe the first 2 or 3 classes, and then after that, nobody's saying yes and anymore. We all understand that it is accepting and contributing, but it's a great tool to teach beginners the rules. So I'm going to use yes and accepting and contributing kind of interchangeably because they really are at the base the same thing. So here's how it works in improv. We're going to have 2 people, they're on stage, we're going to be wearing kind of casual clothes, no costumes or anything like that. And maybe we'll get a prompt from the audience. Give us a location and a relationship. And they're going to say, Scandinavia and your brothers. So, no matter what we might have been thinking beforehand, and honestly, as improvers, we probably weren't trying to plan beforehand. But no matter what we were thinking beforehand, all of a sudden, we are now brothers. We are accepting the truth of that. And we're in Scandinavia. So my scene partner turns to me and says, Bjork, why are you standing out in the rain? And I don't know why he's using an English accent there, but maybe it's because my Scandinavian accent doesn't work. But anyway, he says, Bjork, why are you out in the rain? So no matter what I might have been thinking, my name is Bjork. I'm accepting the truth of what is being offered. And now I'm going to contribute. I'm out in the rain. I'm accepting the truth of that. So, Olaf, today is the day of the big battle. So no matter what my scene partner might have been thinking that we were doing, maybe he thought that we were going to be at a baseball stadium or something like that. But whatever he might have been thinking, as soon as I said Olaf, he's accepted that his name is now Olaf, and I'm saying that there's a big battle today. He's accepting that there is a big battle. Now, When you get a little bit more advanced, you can you can do partial acceptance or acceptance of the truth of that's what they think. So for example, Olaf might come back to me and say that, oh no, the big battle was canceled. We have to do mayhem on a different day. We have a makeup day for that. We don't have to accept the entire thing, but we are accepting the basic truth of, I'm saying that there is a battle, so we both understand that there is a battle. So look at what we've done. By using yes and, accepting and contributing, we've created a scene where we are brothers. We're in Scandinavia. We are Bjork and Olaf. There's a big battle and it's raining. You're allergic to the rain. Achoo, achoo. And whatever it is, whenever somebody makes an offer, we accept it, and that's how we are building a scene. The opposite, of course, once again, would be for me to say, oh, it's a big battle. What are you talking about? We work in the clothing industry. And of course, that would shut things off. So yes and, accepting and contributing, is how improv works to build scenes and build worlds. That's what it's about, world building. Now for haunting, we have already built these worlds. Maybe our haunt is in a Victorian era mansion, or maybe we're in ancient Egypt, or a prison or a warehouse of some sort. And our characters, we've hopefully built our characters. So let's say that I'm a rat catcher. I'm a rat catcher outside of this old haunted mansion. I've already built this. I have a character, I've got a name, I've got ways that the character will act and respond, and we've built this world. I mean, I'm assuming that we built this world. Maybe there are haunts somewhere where, guests walk in and the actors are just in black t-shirts and pants saying, hey, give me a location and an occupation. But generally, at least from what I've seen, haunters usually have built these worlds, and set designers are having so much fun building these little details. We've created this entire world. So let's see how yes and is applied to actors in this world working with guests. This first one is obvious. If the guest comes in, you're stupid, you're not scary, you got that from spirit. Are we going to use yes and? That's accepting the truth of what they're saying. Of course, that's the rule. Yes, I got this costume from spirit, and you can get one too. It's half off. So obviously, there's an exception to the rule right away, when the guests aren't giving an offer. Next would be if the guests are giving an offer that contradicts what they see. So for example, I have a character and I'm a rat catcher, and if somebody says, hey, look, it's Freddy Krueger. So if they say it's Freddy Krueger, does that mean that I have to dump whatever characterization I've been working on, and now I'm just going to do an impression of Freddy Krueger? Well, under the rule of yes and, or accepting and contributing, that's exactly what I have to do. So this is another exception. So we have exceptions for when the guests aren't making offers, or when they're making offers that are contradictory. So now let's see if they make an offer that is actually in line with what we're doing. So here I am, and I'm a rat catcher, and they say, well, I'm your boss, or you owe me $30, or all the rats, they ran into the women's dressing room. You have to go right now. Well, I don't want to do these. I don't want to accept these as true. So maybe these are more exceptions. When the guests aren't giving me an offer, when they're making a contradictory offer, or when they're making an offer that I just don't want to do. So really what's left is you are using yes and as a rule only when you want to say yes. So if you're a rat catcher and somebody says, oh, have you caught rats today? Yes, and because I'm already going to say this anyway. So really, I'm not really sure that that is much of a rule. In fact, being taught this, having this idea of this being a rule drilled into an actor's head can also interrupt different characterizations and different ideas. We've already created this world, so now that I'm in it, I have options inside that world. So let's say that I'm a rat catcher and a guest says, oh, you eat those rats. Now, I could accept that and say, oh, yes, with ratatouille. And I have another dish that's also rat-based called spaghetti bolognese. And so I can have some fun with that. I can accept the truth of the idea that I eat the rats, and I can respond. But if I'm thinking yes and as the rule, then that's kind of where I'm stuck. On the other hand, if they say something and I don't have this kind of in my head, I can respond differently. I can make different choices. You eat those rats, don't you? How dare you? Matilda, close your ear. You didn't hear a word of that. And so I can have different responses. I can have a whole wider range as long as I am willing to listen and interact and respond in character rather than just naturally, I have to say yes and because that's what I've been taught. So when it comes to interacting with guests, I don't find yes and to be particularly applicable or even really useful as a tool, because anything that I'm going to accept and respond to is something that I'm already going to accept and respond to anyway. And so I don't want to put a block into my head that's going to stop me from coming up with other ideas and other choices. Now, I understand yes and is easy to teach. So when you're trying to train your actors to do improv and they feel a little overwhelmed because improv does come with a lot of baggage. You just say the word improv and everybody thinks of whose line is it anyway, where you have these professional comedians that are coming up with perfect lines and perfect jokes every single time. And that's really not how improv works, especially for beginners. But because that's what we see, we think, oh, improv, I have to be funny. I have to have a quick line and a quick joke. And that's really not even true about all improvisation. I've had the privilege of working with and watching improv troupes that have done dramatic works and tragic works even. And it's amazing, it's electric. So I'm in no way against improvisation or improv as an art form. I think it can be magic. But when it comes to teaching haunters, what they generally see is whose line is it anyway, and they think it's all about comedy. There are other ways to teach your actors how to interact and respond with guests. And the first thing is that we could even demystify the whole idea of improvisation. What are we doing as haunters? We are interacting with guests without a script, and we're responding to them. They're saying things, they're doing things, and we are responding to them. And when you think about it, this is something that we do every single day of our lives. Whenever I go to work or if I go to the supermarket, nobody's scripted. I don't know what anyone's going to say. So if somebody says something to me or if something happens, I'm responding. I'm responding with my heart. I'm responding with my head, whichever ones those things are. I'm responding with my emotions. I'm responding with logic. However I'm responding, I am responding. This is something that we naturally do. So one of the keys to help your actors be able to do this is to just take out the mystery of it. The only difference is that now we're doing it in character. So the more they know the character, they know what the character wants, what the character needs, the blocks, the things that are getting in the way of the character getting to what they want, how they respond to things, some of the things that they like, that they don't like, things that they are looking for. The more that they understand these things, the more they can have just an honest, natural reaction, response, and interaction with the guests. And it doesn't have to be funny. When I played improv games, people always, especially when they're first starting, they want to go for the joke and they go for the cheapest laugh that they can get because they need that laugh because that's what it's about. On the other hand, when you have a group that's starting to learn that this is about this art form, then they can go into dramatic, they can go into different areas and they can create these worlds. And for haunters, that's what we're doing. We're creating worlds. So even if there isn't a perfect joke line, the fact that the character responded naturally will give the guest the idea that, oh wow, this is a real world. I'm interacting with a real person as opposed to somebody that's trying to make a joke machine every single time. Don't worry, you have your actors that have that natural ability to just make jokes, and they're gonna do that, and that's fine. But you're taking the pressure off your other actors to be able to just interact with guests and create this world as opposed to having to go for the quick joke. And if you want to teach them a specific skill to help them get over that idea, teach them lateral thinking. That's one of the skills. Lateral thinking is thinking around a problem rather than just responding to it. A simple basic exercise to demonstrate lateral thinking is called questions. Basically, you get two actors or two or three or however many, and one of them starts with a question. Instead of answering the question, they're going to respond with a question to go around that question. Did you deliver the mail? Did you put the mail out for me? Was that my job to do? So instead of answering the question, we're thinking, what are they saying and how am I working around it? It's more listening and more paying attention and more allowing yourself the freedom to respond around rather than directly at. So for example, one of the characters I play is called Benji. And one of the things that I like to do on the last set of the day is Benji will drag a goat through the midway. And people will come up and I will go to people and we'll interact. So let's say the interaction goes like this. The guest comes up and says, "Is that your pet?" Now, I could accept that. I could yes and accept that. Another thing that I could do is respond laterally. So they say, "Is that your pet?" Why would you want to pet a dead goat? He doesn't respond very well, do you? Yeah, he doesn't like being touched by strangers. So what I did was, instead of just responding to what they're saying, I kind of reinterpret it because I was thinking around of what they said instead of just responding to it. I can also just respond in character. I'm in the moment. What am I doing right now? I'm taking these to a particular place. So somebody says, is that your pet? I have to get this to the hot dog stand. Have you tried them? They're good. So I have all of these different options as long as I'm thinking around what they're saying as opposed to just being ready to respond with a quick yes or no, responding directly. Lateral thinking is a great skill for interacting with guests. Also, it's very helpful when you have the guests that are going to be problems because you know that me dragging around this goat, I'm going to have people that say, oh, you fornicate with that goat. You know, they're going to use a different word, but you fornicate with that goat. And I really don't want to answer yes to that. But if I have yes and in my head as being the rule for improvisation, then I'm going to have to start there and block myself and then I'll come up with something, as opposed to if I'm just training myself to think laterally, they're saying something to me, what can I do? Oh, I'm just in the moment. I'm just going to go on, no, I'm taking this to the hot dog stand. And now I've reclaimed the narrative. And if they continue going with it because they really want to get their little joke in, then I can respond at that point. It's just, well, you're not even listening to me. Oh, I'm just going to get this done. I got work to do. And then I can go. And I can control, to a point, the narrative. And that's all by lateral thinking rather than letting them control the narrative by saying, you fornicate with that goat. And I have to think to stop to say yes or no. And who knows, maybe your haunt has an actor trainer who swears by yes and wants to teach it and everybody's going to use it, or maybe they're just using it to help your actors overcome this fear of improv because, like I said, improv has baggage. But my perspective is haunting is its own unique art form. Now, I do want to mention using yes and, accepting and contributing, in scene work between two actors, because it does have a little bit more of an application. The reason why this is going to work a lot better is because they've already accepted everything that's going on. You're not going to have one actor that says, I am Dracula. No, you're Nick. We work together in construction. That's not going to happen because they've all accepted, or they should be accepting of all of the world building that we've already done. So this is the place where accepting works. Igor. I'm Renfield. I'm Renfield. Igor's the other guy. I don't care. Renfield, did you eat my favorite, beautiful pet bird? Now, of course, we have a number of different options. If we just go straight to yes and, yes, I did. Oh, I'm sorry. Or you can accept without actually saying yes. No, I didn't eat that beautiful, delicious bird feather. So I'm still accepting, but I'm not just saying yes and. Or I can just accept part of what's being said. No, that killer bird bit my hand, and now it's roaming around free. There it is! And who knows, maybe you can get the guests to all jump and react to something that isn't there. So when training your actors to work together, there is an element of yes and, accepting and contributing. So to sum up, what we do as haunters is character improvisation. And it's a different art form from improv with a capital I. And yes and, when dealing with guests, is really not applicable, and sometimes it's not even helpful. So when it comes to guest interaction, instead of teaching yes and, I would focus on character, what the character needs, what they want, in what they are doing in that moment, and lateral thinking so that they are better able to respond when they're actually interacting with the guests and keeping this world that they've already created. This is Perspectives on Improv, Haunting, Yes and this is Scaring with Sammy. And still no music.